Hey, everybody, welcome to the premiere episode of Game Junkie, episode 1. And today we're going to kick it off and talk about what gamers want. And I am super thrilled to have two of my best dudes here. I have the Gurney and Boki. Welcome, guys.
Thank you so much.
Whoa.
So I figured we could have a little fun today since this is a gamer show, kind of run by gamers, fueled by gamers, featuring gamers. We could play a game and just kind of take turns talking about what we want to see in the gaming industry. But if we say something that another person said and we get caught, you got to call us out and we got to take a drink on air.
All right.
Okay, let's do it. So, Gurney, I'm going to let you go first because I know you're super passionate about this and you have a lot of awesome opinions on these kinds of things.
I was not expecting to go first. I'm not gonna lie. So.
You don't have to. I can go first. Boki can go first. It's fast and loose, baby.
I'll go first. I'll put myself out there.
Let's do it.
So I'll start by saying I already kind of like where the industry is. Now, also, is this something where we're gonna just say one thing at a time, or are we allowed to extrapolate on an idea?
You can extrapolate on an idea, and then we'll kind of go around, and everybody will take a turn. But if somebody kind of gets on a tangent that somebody else said, we'll kind of like a gaming move. So we'll kind of for fun.
I'll start really small then, and I'll start with an actual game that I would like to see.
Oh,
I want Splinter Cell. That's what I want.
Splinter Cell.
Splinter Cell.
Remind me of the developer that makes that.
That's Ubisoft, actually.
That's what I thought.
Cell, yeah. When it originally released, it was an OG Xbox game, and it really showcased what the lighting systems for the time could do. It was just super espionage and really cool gadgets, and I love Splinter Cell, and stealth is really, really lacking, in my opinion. Stealth in the way that I want to see it. I want that spy espionage stuff. So I will say, IO Interactive doing the new James Bond, it makes me really hopeful that I could maybe get some Splinter Cell angles there. But I want Splinter Cell or something like Splinter Cell.
I'm going to piggyback off that and say I want to see, because you mentioned Ubisoft, and that makes me think of Assassin's Creed. No offense to Assassin's Creed. I still enjoy them. I want to see less of these copy-paste feeling yearly franchise releases. I just want to see less of those and more, maybe I just want to see less of those, damn it. I just really want less of them.
I agree with that. I think like at the age of big data and analytics, it's just like people keep buying that stuff, so of course it keeps pumping that stuff out. And it's just a double-edged sword in that capacity sometimes.
Totally, but I mean, Splinter Cell would sell really well. I mean, maybe
I hope
cut the franchises down so it's not every year, so we get more franchises that are out less often, and maybe there's more time to polish them so they're delivered in a better state. I don't know, maybe just my idea.
I want that too. I really want that too.
Boki, what you got?
Bloodborne 2. Guys, I want to continue. Like, there's no reason for it not to continue. Miyazaki, the legend, it's his favorite game of all the Souls games he made, and every other game he made. It's his favorite game. He's up for it. So why aren't we seeing a Bloodborne 2?
That's
or a 60 frames per second patch, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, let's start with just a 60 frames per second patch.
I mean, start somewhere. Give us a patch, damn it.
Right.
I mean, so that's frustrating to me, because I think that franchise today, if it released, it would sell millions of copies. It's like the love child of Twitter. Everyone loves that game. Not everyone can play it, but
I don't, because I'm not that patient. I don't want that kind of challenge. But it's a fantastic game. I won't take away.
That's what I mean.
It's brilliant. I just, yeah,
People love the game, but maybe they don't play it. It doesn't matter. But it's like it's a cult classic by now. I think it
it
was
is.
17. I mean, people would love that. And somewhere I hope that they are actually doing it, like in secret, because I know From Software has like several projects on the way. Maybe there is something going on. We don't know.
I
Maybe.
wouldn't rule it out, but I wouldn't get your hopes up either.
I knew you would say that.
I want it too, baby. I want it too. Let it be known.
All right, what else do you want, Gurney? It's your go.
So, so I see that we're allowed to say what we don't want, right? Like things that we want
Absolutely.
cut out.
Absolutely.
I would love to see games as a service fucking disappear. Fucking disappear. And the reason being is like those games they release as like a certain experience, and then they evolve and change, and they leave so much stuff behind that they become so disjointed like the longer they're on the market. Like when Destiny 1 came out, it was really awesome, but it was like it was its own thing. And then they released the Taken King, which basically made that a completely different game. And then you had all that year one content that just kind of sat there and just like captured dust in the corner. So games as a service, you know, they also have the risk of completely shutting down. Like when people stop playing them, you can't go back and have that original Destiny experience. So it's an incomplete, not cohesive. Like, do you know what I mean? Like it's not like a complete product. Like I can't pick it up and have the same experience on day one that I have 3 years later down the line. So I just don't like games as a service.
I mean, well, Game Pass is technically kind of games as a service, but that's a different thing. The thing I do like where I will give Ubisoft credit in that regards, is releasing content kind of regularly gives me a reason to want
That's
to
true.
replay a game. But I think the context you're talking about there is some people rely a bit heavily on it, and for the full price of the initial game, you feel like you're getting a lot less.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think like a complete product, like Bloodborne is a complete product. Even with the DLC only enhances that standalone game. But the experience that I had on day one with Bloodborne, like I can go back to it and talk about, you know, like Martyr Ligarius, and I can talk about Father Gascoigne. I can, you know, like, so I can talk about that experience 5 years down the line, and it's the same conversation I could have had on day one. Whereas like a games as a service, it's like Destiny, Division, Avengers, like all these games, you know, like for instance, in Destiny, you had these raids, right? And there was one like called the Vault of Glass. And so it fractures the fan base. Whereas like the early adopters could play Destiny and be like, oh, you know, Vault of Glass was so amazing. And then they're talking to someone who just played Destiny, and they don't know what you're talking about because they weren't able to participate in that raid because the new raids kind of supersede the old raids.
I
So,
understand now. Okay.
yeah, games as a service, it just kind of fractures what the game is. And
Right.
it loses its identity, I think.
Okay, so that gives me a clear understanding that if somebody buys the game, whether it's day one or years down the line, they should be able to have that same cohesive experience.
Consistency. Yeah.
Okay.
Which is why I think you have a big debate around easy modes in games, you know, because it does fracture consistency. Like if you're playing Bloodborne on easy and he's playing Bloodborne on hard, you guys aren't going to be able to have this same synchronicity when you're talking about the game. Whereas like Bloodborne doesn't have difficulties. So when you talk about Bloodborne, you're talking about Bloodborne. Like if I say Father Gascoigne is hard, you know what I mean. You know what I mean?
Right. No, that totally makes sense. I think that some games may need a difficulty mode, which is fine. After I beat a game a few times, if I just want to explore or like have a more casual experience,
Yeah, for sure.
I'll put it on easy. But some games the developers are in charge of how we should experience the games, and I'm a fan of experiencing it the way they want us to experience it, which
Yes.
makes me think of The Last of Us 2.
Mhm.
Okay. That game was hard. It emotionally wrecked me. It made me so uncomfortable. That was the intent of the game. And it was a huge narrative risk. I want to see more developers feel empowered to make those kinds of narrative risks where they know people are not going to be okay with this. And it may
Right.
cause controversy, but it's going to leave such a lasting impact on the industry.
No
So
pun
that would,
intended.
yeah. So that one, that's mine. That was my turn.
Okay, awesome. Then I will take it from there, because what I want to see is more like games that have a unique artistic vision that doesn't care about how it, like, if there is an audience for it. Even like it doesn't really care about that. Maybe it creates its own audience because it's so unique. It creates like a new gaming sphere, like that's how we evolve in games, I think.
So
Like
you
with the,
basically, it kind of sounds like you're talking about indie games. When you say that, my brain immediately thinks of
yeah,
so many indie games.
indie games do that, absolutely, but even indie games are kind of in a rut. It's hard to explain, but there's so many, like there's like this mainstream indie that's where everyone is doing like a trend, and these games become popular. It's not the ones that are like the interesting, unique, strange games. They don't reach their audience as easily. So that's why I want to see more risks taken in like the AAA sphere, because that's where the eyes are. So when people take those risks and we see a game like Returnal, it does something that is like The Last of Us. It takes a big risk because this is a game that
Definitely.
people would probably like shit on it if it wasn't presented the right way. People wouldn't understand it, but like it has managed um, to like find an understanding. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
The way it was presented made people like hype for it. So a lot of people gave it a shot, and it turns out, wow, shit, we love this game. Even if it's like people new to these difficult type of games are loving it.
Yeah.
That makes
And
sense.
yeah,
Totally. That makes sense. And niche games catering to a very specific market that may not sell a ton of copies, even if
yeah,
they're not a small indie production, I think is what you're saying, right?
yeah. But the way they
Okay.
presented it made it like so hype. I mean, those trailers, they were so amazing. People were like, wow, what the fuck is this shit?
Right.
If you just read it in words, you wouldn't really understand it. So the way they presented the game made it like, even if it's niche, found an audience, because many of these people maybe even didn't think they would like it. They would probably say no to a game like this if it wasn't presented in the right way. So that's what I'm hoping to see more of, like major league AAA creativity and risk taking.
Yeah, you want to see the indie creativity in the AAA space.
Oh
Yeah,
my God, totally. That'd be a
Yeah.
dream come true.
I do want to piggyback off of what you're saying, not to say what I want yet, but I just want to add to that. I think the biggest issue with indies that I have is simply the oversaturation. There are so many indie games that it's really hard for the cream of the crop to rise to the top. And like, I mean, you get on the PlayStation Store, and there's just title after title, and the cover page and the cover arts can get really samey and kind of all blend together. And you're like, what is this game? What does it offer? Like, so what I would like is better video game marketing. I would love to see like the indies just be marketed better. Like really explain what this game does better than other games and why I should play it. You know, piggybacking off of Returnal, it is an indie game with a AAA budget.
yeah,
You know, and it's not going to appeal to everybody. It's a very niche game, but to the market that it does appeal to, it's phenomenal. I mean, I can't think of I can't really think of too many games that are like Returnal. I can't think. Can you think of any other like AAA roguelikes like that?
No, I can't think of a single AAA game in
Right.
like in 20 years maybe that does that arcadey thing, while at the same time like innovating.
Absolutely. It does seem like the AAA space right now has really truly found a groove. And I know people love to like crap on Sony for putting out the same third-person RPG mechanics. Like those games are phenomenal, but I do think Returnal is kind of this break of where it's not anything like a Sony first-party game that we're used to seeing. Like The Last of Us is obviously hugely story based. God of War, hugely story based. Uncharted, like all of Sony first party offerings, the cream of the crop. It's really heavily story focused. Whereas like Returnal is obviously gameplay focused first, and they kind of give you little narrative tidbits throughout that kind of keep you engaged. But like the beauty of that game and the frustration of it, it's combined. The beauty and the frustration go hand in hand, because when you die, starting over either means it's kind of like a glass half full, glass half empty kind of a situation. It's like I either can view it where I'm losing everything I have, or B, I'm getting an opportunity to create a build that I haven't experienced yet. And so there's this beauty in the failure, which is obviously you've seen my tweets. That's fucking frustrating, but it's also equally invigorating and addictive, man. It's so addictive. So back to my point, I would like to see better video game marketing. Really pinpoint what that game is about. And like old school marketing, like reading like print, EGM, Game Pro, all those magazines back in the day, something that they were really good at was telling me why I should be excited. Whereas I think a lot of video game journalism kind of has this rut of where they talk to you as if you already know what a game is going to be. Like they just don't do a good enough job explaining to me what a game is and why I should be excited. So I want to see more pinpointed accuracy with video game marketing.
I think it's because they make a lot of assumptions that it's going to sell based on who's making it or what console it's on. That's what I think, at least. I mean, I know I don't see a lot of ads for like Chili's and Bonefish Grill and Carrabba's and franchise restaurants, because they're franchise restaurants, and we know they exist. I'm with you though. I want to be sold, even if it's a game I know I'm going to like and buy. I want you to sell me on that shit. I want to feel that.
And the other thing is, I'm noticing too, as I'm getting older, there's a lot of younger people that don't know who Naughty Dog is, who don't know who Housemarque is, who don't know who these developers are. They're like, who are these people? What have they made? What is this game? So like there are these, it's like this generational thing of like, we're all a little bit older, so we've seen the heritage of gaming. So when you say Naughty Dog, we know what to expect. Whereas like somebody who doesn't know who Naughty Dog is, they're like, why should I be excited? I don't know what this game is. So it's like, it's trying to unite the young and the old, and like that's where I think marketing needs to shine a little better.
I agree.
Educate those who don't know, while getting those who do know excited in what the game actually is.
That's awesome. That's like the best concept of marketing I've heard in years.
I mean, I'm down for it. I'm down for it. My turn. I'm just going to say it. Okay. And I don't care if I sound like a little bit of a perv. Okay. But lots of adults play video games. Okay. The primary consumer of video games are people like us. They're in their mid 30s to late 40s. They're educated. They work. Okay. We're not like a bunch of fat, like losers in our parents' basement. Like that stereotype is really, really, really untrue. I enjoy adult content in video games, and I just want to see more games take the risk with being graphic with their romances like Cyberpunk did. I enjoyed that as an adult. I liked that the romance scenes were graphic, and I liked that they put in all this effort where if you develop a romance, that character will text you, and like it felt more like what a romance would feel in real life. So taking those kinds of concepts and having game development companies run with them, especially with RPGs, because after you romance something or you save someone's life or you had an NPC that was your partner, it just kind of falls away when you're done with that, and it doesn't feel realistic. So the way the at least the Judy V romance is kind of a good one for like that long stability that kind of felt like this is how real people do this in real life. That kind of feeling I want more in video games, even if it's not in that romance or sexual capacity, but I want those thought out ways put into video games. That was really cool. That was something that resonated with me, and I was like, I would love to see this in video games more.
Yeah. Super gay too, right, Judy? Like you can only romance if you could only romance Judy if you were a woman.
And now I just like, I mean, I know I'm gonna have to play the game as a dude, but like, I'm not gonna lie. I know that Judy is not real, but like secretly, like I might be having an affair on my wife with Judy. It's very possible. Like I just love the character. But even like video games produce characters that were like, I would be best friends with Aloy, right? I would really get along with Ellie. Like Joel could be a father figure. So
if he doesn't kill you.
Yeah. But giving us those things that feel real, that don't just end like right when a quest line ends.
Absolutely.
When all of that like emotion and all of that narrative ends, I kind of want to see that go away more, and I want to see developers dig deeper into those levels of relationships that we have in games.
Damn,
it does seem. Go ahead, Boki.
Yeah, I love what I'm hearing, and I'm going to back off that because what I want to see more in video games are like real characters.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Not characters that are in some strange, fucked up situation, like in a zombie world or whatever, in aliens. I want to see real characters, like real humans, doing stuff that are meaningful in real life. Like that's what I was hoping Shenmue was.
Oh yeah.
I remember that because we talked about marketing. That game was marketed like it was gonna be like the real life experience. Back with the Dreamcast, I wanted the Dreamcast because of that game. I saw like this guy. I was a kid, but this guy was he was working. He was like driving those forklifts. And it was like it's like the normal life, but it was so imaginative to me that I believe, wow, I was like fantasizing all the time about capturing like normal humans, and I've always wanted to see that. The closest thing to that, in my opinion, is like the Yakuza games, and that's strange. Yeah, it's strange.
I haven't played those yet.
You should. They are amazing at capturing like the small human existence we all live. Like really.
Or is Yakuza, is it a spiritual successor to Shenmue? Because I loved Shenmue back in the day, man. I loved it.
Not, but I understand why you feel that way. Maybe it is.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe it is in some way. There's a lot of similarities. Like you can go to an arcade, you can go into ordinary shops and stuff. But like the side stories in Yakuza, they are all about normal human beings. Albeit in Japan, so there's a lot of strange stuff going on we don't understand. But like in the latest Yakuza 7, it was like about homelessness. It was so beautiful. And this guy Ichiban, that's when you said you wanted to be friends with these people. I would love to have a friend like Ichiban. I'm in love with him. He's so kind and like a good-hearted person, and he helps out, and he like just wants everyone to have the best life. He's like a real
man.
I feel that. I that might be my favorite take of the day, just because like you're saying something and I'm pretty much going every David Cage game. If Quantic Dream puts out a title, I feel like it's real people and I'm gonna love somebody in it. I feel that.
Did you guys play Persona 5?
Not yet.
Yeah, Persona 5 that gave me that feeling. I felt really like attached to those characters, man. Yeah, that was a good one. I agree completely. Good characters, man. That seems to be like the just the games these days. They're so focused on creating and it's not a slight either. I think that's the other thing. Like we need to learn to compartmentalize what games are, so you can still have your arcade shooters like Returnal, but Returnal does definitely have like a human element to it. Like
Absolutely.
Celine is like, even though you're just doing arcade shit, like Celine is very emotional. Like she's got a real story there internally, and
He seems like a normal person.
yeah,
And I don't know how this game ends, but I'm guessing
under,
there will be some fucked up twists.
yeah.
That's the best.
Which biome are you in, by the way?
I'm in the second one.
The second one? Yeah, no, it there's little things that happen in the house that are certainly hinting at a really cool thing. Are me? Back to me?
You.
All right.
Yes.
So piggybacking off of the characters thing, I think I would like to see less open world stuff. And the reason being is it seems like every game that's open world, it's almost like bigger maps, more space, bigger than ever before. And it's like, that's just not interesting to me. Like sometimes it is the more enclosed linearity. Like The Last of Us 2, I think, did something so wonderful where it still creates those linear experiences, but it also has, like, what was it, day one in Seattle, where it was like the open space and you could literally kind of go and explore at your own leisure. And you go into the music store and that's where Ellie's singing the Aha Take on Me. Like, so they did it in such a way where it had that open level design, but you are still experiencing this emotional connection to the game, to the characters. It just didn't seem like you were getting so lost in getting from point A to point B. Like that's what most of the waste for me in open world is, what is happening in between me getting from A to B, which is where I find, I'm going to criticize Assassin's Creed a little bit here, but that's where those games kind of fall short for me. Is the map is freaking massive and it's beautiful, sure, but like, what's happening from point A to point B that's interesting? Why is your map big, and why does it need to be that big? Like something that I feel, or a game that I feel that was capable of pulling that off was Red Dead Redemption 2. Whereas like some of those boring moments in between could be fueled with your expression of what you're doing in nature, like setting up a campsite, and then you're going over and you're shooting a deer, and then you're bringing the carcass back, you're skinning it, and then you're cooking the food over the fire, and you're sitting in your tent after you send it up, and you're reading your journal. Like, there are very human elements that take place if the player chooses to engage, but it seems like a lot of developers aren't making use of open world design the same way that like linear experiences can tell very focused stories. So for me personally, the open world, I'm kind of fatigued on the open world design, but I still think that developers can utilize it. But it's become a cop-out, I think. Open world is I'm kind of fatigued on that. So I'd like to see less open world.
I think when open worlds became popular, the idea was to fill a lot of bloat, put a lot of bloat in it, because you can say it's a big game and you're getting your money's worth.
Yep.
Because you play, a lot of these games. I mean, even Cyberpunk has a lot of bloat. The Assassin's Creed, Red Dead Redemption has a lot of extra stuff, but it is different. Like you said, the human element is there.
There's a lot of expression, like human expression. Like,
yes.
You can just kind of sit there and take in nature, which it's like, if you don't like nature, Red Dead Redemption 2 is going to be boring as hell for you. But like all the audio design, like, so just sitting in the tent, right? and it's like raining, and you're just listening to the raindrops fall in the tent, and you're sitting there watching the wildlife run around. Like that's something that requires the player to kind of be actively aware of what's happening in the environment. But like Assassin's Creed doesn't give you that same immersion factor. It's a big open world, and sure, there's wildlife running around, but it's nowhere near that same level of care. And there's so many little tiny nuances that Red Dead Redemption gave me to express myself.
I totally agree. It's that extra immersion that game developers aren't giving us in open world. I mean, Horizon
Right.
Zero Dawn didn't feel like a bloated open world game. The
Right.
Outer Worlds didn't feel like a bloated open world
No.
game to me. But so many of them just have way too much stuff. I'm not grinding for all that stuff. I don't care about all these side missions.
Nope.
I mean, Fallout is one of the few games I kind of expect to bloat because it's what Fallout is, and it's kind of what the franchise was built on.
Right.
I would not be mad if they gave me a game that was half the length that I'm used to in Fallout. It gave me better quality, because to talk about like better characters, the dialogue in some of these bloated quests are just like, this is not what real people would say. These are not real characters. These are not real interactions. There's no immersion there.
Well, and real quick, I think the other problem is you have the main content in the game, but so much of the main content relies on you to be a certain level to progress. So secretly, the side content is actually main content because you have to do it to progress in the main story. So it's like, just let me mainline the Assassin's Creed games, for God's sake, so that I don't have to buy this XP booster, so I don't sit here and waste my time doing fetch quests when I'm a fucking Viking. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
man.
Yes. I mean, I loved sleeping my way through ancient Greece as Cassandra and Sparta kicking the shit out of every general off the top of the cliff. But I really didn't need that. I totally feel you on that. Totally feel you on that. It's my turn. You know what I want, damn it? I'm going to pull a Boki here. I want The Last of Us 3. I'm sorry.
Me too.
I'm sorry. That was 2 cliffhangers. I need closure. I need resolution. I love all the damn characters that are left. I want another Last of Us 3. And I want Naughty Dog to keep cranking, but just give me one more. Just give me one more game that freaking masterful. Just one more.
I feel you on that. I love the characters so much, and I would really love to see like Abby and Lev's story continue. You know, they are like one of my favorite characters of all time, and I was so sad that it didn't continue. I understand it was like a masterful ending, but I would really love to see them do well, like at least for a segment, some like for them to experience some beauty or something together. I want the games to continue. And
Do you think that they will make a Last of Us 3? Because it does feel like the second game, it almost gave you a reason for it to become a franchise, because it doesn't conclude in a satisfying manner. It leaves you kind of reflective, open, and then when you open the title screen, you obviously see that Abby and Lev made it to Catalina Island and met up with the Fireflies. So it's seeming to set up for sure a Last of Us 3.
yeah,
There was a lot of sources on the. I mean, I know that Twitter was ablaze with it the other day. That all these websites and game journalists were saying that supposedly, don't take my word for it because I don't know how to know this is true, but supposedly Naughty Dog confirmed they have an outline for Last of Us 3, but they're not in development on it. And if I look at the timeline, Last of Us 1 was towards the end of PS3, right?
yeah.
Last of Us 2 was towards the end of PS4. So I'm wondering if we're going to have to wait
till the end of PS5.
I mean, we may have to wait 5, 6, 7, 8 years, but I mean, it takes time.
It does seem like with the first Last of Us, well, where it's going, it seems that they would obviously have to do some sort of a redemption arc. I mean, that makes the clearest sense, because something that they haven't really kind of explained still is how Ellie got her immunity. and she's still immune. Like, so she's still out in the wild and she's immune. And obviously, Abby and Lev got their own thing going on. I feel like you could absolutely have a conclusive, you know,
Yeah.
The Last of Us 3 could absolutely wrap things up in the tiny bow that could potentially reunite the fractured fan base again. Because it's just that's speaking of just toxicity, man. Just I think. Do you think, like, if The Last of Us 2 wasn't spoiled, that it would have still been met with the same toxicity, or do you think that?
Yeah, I just think people would have. I think people would have played the game, actually played it before they judged it. But there's a lot of people who would have still, I think, because they killed Joel so early. I think that
Yeah.
would have made so many people mad, and I think they still would have hated playing as Abby. So I think there are still a lot of people who wouldn't have been able to get. But I do feel like because it was spoiled, I actually think, no, I'm going to take that back. I think you are right, Gurney, because I think it became a clickbait thing at that point. It became something that
Yes.
you should do. You should hate on it because I'm going to
Yes.
get views. So yeah, I
They got their
actually,
claws into it.
yeah, I think you're right. If it weren't spoiled, less people would have hated on it because
Yeah.
they would have experienced the journey like we did and go, wow, this is a really great experience. And it
Yeah.
was so emotionally hard. I mean, I rarely cry, period. There's
Yeah.
2 video games I can recall making me cry in the last 20 years, and that was one of them. And it was,
Wow.
I mean, it was like, not like bawling, but like
Right.
I teared up
Oh, me
watching
too. Me too.
the art direction. Yeah, like the art direction that like, and then you felt the anxiety and you felt Ellie not being able to, like, I almost felt in that moment that I couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
And there was so, and I remember, you know, I hated Abby at first, and then I played with her, and I'm like, don't let her die, don't let. And then when I had to
Yeah.
go into the theater, I had to pause it, and I said, I don't think. I had some friends over, and I was like, I can't kill Ellie. I can't do this.
Yeah.
I can't do what the game's going to make. I don't think I can do this. I don't know if I can continue. I'm scared of what's going to happen. And then at the very end of the game, I'm like, Lev is just like you, and that parallel, like Abby is your Joel. I can't. Do not make me like. Don't.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Like those
Getting-
moments made me like watery.
Boki, what were you saying?
I'm getting goosebumps here just thinking
Yes.
about it.
Yes.
The thing that game does, which I'm a literature major, so I love narratives. I love analyzing narratives, and I've always been thinking, like, why aren't games using their medium to tell stories in ways that only that medium can do?
Yeah.
It's rare. Like some directors understand this, like Kojima does.
Oh yeah.
But it's so rare. But I think that what The Last of Us did was like revolutionary in using like concepts that for narrative that are only possible in games. Like you having to control a character to kill someone that you kind of love, you know. You are so emotionally connected to these characters,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to do it because it's a game. And that's like one of the worst feelings I can think of. And no other media can do that. Music can't. You can't just do it in a film. It's like it would be like, I don't know, corny if a film was paused and you have to like
Right.
pick an option. But in the gaming space, what they did with Last of Us, there's like so many things that only games can do with storytelling.
Well, too, I think part of the issue with why we don't see that more and more, but I mean the way is being paved currently. It does look like that, but it's going to be met with a lot of friction. I mean, it seems like every game in recent time that had a story to tell has been met with extreme criticism from the gaming community. You know, like with Tilu, you know, I do really think that game being spoiled did the game such a disservice, because here's what I think. I think initially when you experience Joel dying, it creates this trauma in you, and you feel that. With the game being spoiled, you had that trauma experience, like, holy shit, Joel dies. You had that like a month before the game came out. So you were just kind of left to your devices and you were processing this anger, but it wasn't being navigated in any like productive manner. Whereas like you were supposed to experience the trauma of Joel dying, and then slowly the game de-escalates that trauma and turns it into forgiveness if you're open-minded enough to receive it. Because when you play as Abby and you realize that Joel fucking murdered her dad, like, and he was only trying to help humanity, like, it's like, yeah, I mean, if some dude murdered my dad who was trying to synthesize a vaccine to save the world, like, I would probably be pissed off too.
Yeah.
But like, the rationality of Abby too is, she only wanted to kill Joel, whereas Ellie is killing everybody on the way to Abby. Literally everybody. Nobody is safe from Ellie, whereas Abby was very surgical with how she got to Joel and what she did. So I really do think that game getting spoiled is why there's so much toxicity around it. It was experienced in the wrong way, you know?
Yeah, I have to agree with that. And really, two things that Boki has said today. The reality is, and those characters did things that real people would do.
Yeah.
That's just like it's Ellie became so I started to not like her. She became consumed, and every single one of us has become so consumed with something. We let that anger just seep in and destroy, even if it's just temporary, right? What our morals really are. And that's one thing I love about video games is I can read a book, I can watch a film. It doesn't feel the same to me unless I'm the person sitting there. Like, I like haunted houses. Scary movies don't bother me. I cannot play scary video games because it feels more real, because I'm the one that has to like move and not die and attack and like not freak out. And it's such a different experience. Man, you killed it on both of those things. I want to see more of that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Gurney, it's your turn.
Is it my turn?
It is, because it was yep.
I would like to see, well, I am a horror buff, so I want more horror. And I think the reason I want more horror is also because of what Boki said. I think there's an absolutely great way of telling a story in a horror situation. When like terrifying things are happening to you, that's typically when what you're made of comes out. I've always heard a saying of what comes out of you when you're pressed is like really what you like are. That's like you being tested. And horror to me is a great medium for telling more human stories. I'll take a drink because that's really close to what he's saying. But I want horror, you know?
Yeah, no, I totally understand it. And that's how, I get like my flight or fight thing is totally fight. Like, I'll be the first one if somebody sneaks up on me, they might get punched because it's a reaction and I'm not trying to. So, but that's what I do in horror games is I'll panic and I'll be like, fucking kill everybody. And then that's like the wrong thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah, but horror is just not taken very seriously, I don't think. I grew up loving horror. I feel like there's so much creativity with the practical effects in movies, for instance. And just like the scenarios that they create, there's got to be a very specific way for a scare to be delivered or for something to feel scary. And I feel like there's a lot of untapped potential in gaming for horror. And I want to see more of that.
What's your favorite horror game?
What's my favorite horror game? Oh my God. Well, it depends because you have legitimate fear responses, which I would say that would be Resident Evil 7 in virtual reality. That was freaking terrifying. But then like my favorite horror game is probably the remake of Resident Evil 1 on GameCube. I love that game. The GameCube remake of Resident Evil 1.
To just make a comment there, and I'm not a big horror buff, but I think, and I could be wrong because that's not my genre, I think a lot of horror is the same franchises, right?
Yeah, I mean Resident Evil, Silent Hill. I mean the indie space is certainly a good place for horror, but again, it comes down to marketing. Like I don't know what to play. I don't know what to play because nobody talks about the. I mean, I've heard things like Layers of Fear, and I have played Soma. Have you played Soma, Boki?
Yeah,
Soma's freaking awesome.
yeah,
Like Soma is a great example of what I'm talking about, where it's like it just took you into your mind and made you really reflective on,
yeah.
you know, deep things like consciousness and I don't know.
So it
So
sounds like we definitely need more new horror IPs, but if we have them, it really goes back to marketing. I know it's hard for indies because they have smaller budgets, but I'm starting to see why you were talking about the marketing, and the more we talk, the more it makes sense, because this is why AAA titles sell so well, folks. They can sit and rest on the same repeated ideas and kind of
yep,
partial copy pasta coding with a little bit of skin changes, is because we don't know what else to play and to buy.
yeah, it's true. And Returnal's a good example of that. You know, obviously I was very skeptical of Returnal, where Bulky's like, no, 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 it's gonna be great. You know, Bulky's just over here championing, and I'm like, okay, Bulky, like I believe you, I trust you, I have no other choice, and I'm glad that I took that risk. You know, but without Bulky, I certainly would not have bought Returnal based on the marketing alone. I just wouldn't have.
But I think that's like there's two parts of this. I think we as a community, I mean, Twitter, we think it's a small thing, but it makes like a difference in how games reach and which people they reach. Because if we have more passionate people talking about the game, it will spread.
Yeah,
And that's what we see happening with Returnal. That's why I'm so like passionate about when these games finally get a chance at the big screen spotlight. We need to support that, and I'm not talking about money because that's the like least important thing. It's talking about them and in a positive way. And even if Returnal failed, that type of risk taking is worth passionately talking about. I mean, it's worth lifting what they are trying to do, even if they fail, because otherwise we are going to get this homogenized experience, and it will be more and more like Assassin's Creed. The Last of Us is great, it's amazing, but we won't see these other type of formats in the media.
right.
No, that makes sense. I mean, new IP can't breed, right? If we stop supporting it, essentially. So I
Yeah,
totally,
exactly.
that makes total sense.
Yep.
All right, it's my turn. I want to see more PlayLink content. So few people that I know in the gaming community supported those games. I know there's not a ton of them. PlayLink, freaking awesome. You download an app on your phone, and you and your friends play the games from the app on your phone.
Love those games.
Love those games. Hidden Agenda, it played like it was motion capture, and it felt like a movie, but you and your friends had to decide, are we going to be on the same team? Are we going to compete against each other? Are we going to have to there's a mode in there where you literally have to like hash out your differences and kind of debate what decision you're going to make collectively. Sometimes it's majority rules. Sometimes you have to alter. So there's different ways you can play the game, but you have to find clues and solve these crimes. But it's very, there's a lot of story arcs that can happen. That I absolutely loved Hidden Agenda. It's not good on your own. It's definitely a multiplayer experience. Knowledge is power. Fantastic trivia game. I love to just have my friends over every now and again, drink, and play this very competitive trivia game. Frantics is a fun, cute. The kids can play it too. Like you've got these adorable little farm creatures, and you're doing all these really hard little like races and puzzles. Erica's a great first play, and that's literally a playable movie like Until Dawn. It's a psychological thriller with a ton of like branching story arcs. I mean, I love games like that. You know, I love David Cage, but to do it and play it from a phone and have it be an experience that non-gamer people can easily jump in and enjoy, there was so much value to that, and every one of those games was made by an indie developer.
Mm.
So that I would definitely like to see that more supported, and I would like to see PS5 content come out in that fashion just because I thought it was so cool.
I've never even heard of this stuff. Which again, marketing. You know, like I need to hear about this stuff. Like I would be interested in that. You know, that sounds really cool.
It was really poorly marketed. There was one little, I happened to turn the PlayStation on, and you know how sometimes like you can see they have little ads in the game. It was an ad I saw on PS4. It was actually in the Play Store. Like sometimes I'll go in the Play Store and just browse to see what can I find that I didn't know about.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the hell's PlayLink? And I was like, is that The Rock and Kevin Hart? And it was after they made the Jumanji movie and they were playing Knowledge is Power against each other.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think I'm going to get that. And I said, I really like PlayLink. So I started buying titles to support it. But it was poor. That's poor marketing. If I have to go into the PlayStation store and just get lucky and find commercials while I'm browsing, that's just, it's poor marketing.
It is, man.
It's sad, you know why? Because these games are very popular these days, but people don't know about them. But the ones that people know about, I mean, they're huge. People are sitting at home. There's no university students. My girl is like playing these games with her the other students, and if they were well marketed, I think these games would do huge numbers these days.
Yep.
Yeah, I do feel like out of all the industries that exist, and I could be wrong because I haven't had cable TV in forever, so I don't see mainstream commercials, but I feel like gaming is one of the rare major industries that doesn't heavily rely on marketing.
Yeah,
We really haven't. We just assume that, well, gamers are going to go on their own. And I mean, because we're fanatics. So we go and we figure this stuff out ourselves. But like you said earlier, Gurney, you have all these younger people who are getting into it and they don't know.
No.
You know, they don't know what these franchises are. They don't know who the developers are. So that's a really solid point to continue kind of grinding on.
Well, and that's the thing. If you don't know what to look for, you're obviously going to be drawn to the thing that's being talked about the most, which is why you see so many kids playing Minecraft and Fortnite, because on YouTube, those are the biggest games being streamed. You know, like people didn't like GTA is massive. It's still consistently a bestseller, but like so many people are getting into this like streaming side of it, where they're watching it for role playing. Like there's like literal streamers who are just like role playing parts in GTA Online and creating this like kind of episodic content for kids to watch. And so GTA is becoming so big, not for people to play it, but just to stream it and watch it. So it's like, yeah, if the marketing isn't out there to guide people to these more artistic games and more human stories, like people are just going to go where the low-hanging fruit's at, which is, what's on my PlayStation page. Click on the popular tab. I see Fortnite and Apex and all this jazz. Like that's what people are going to play. That's what they're going to buy Assassin's Creed because they know it by name. Call of Duty. I mean, so it does require a curious mind to really kind of experience these really breakthrough unique titles.
Yeah, I think all of the stuff that we've been talking about on this show today really drive home the idea that as gamers, we have to use our voice to talk about these things, because that's a huge support mechanism for other people to learn what these games are, who these developers are. So that's a bit, if you don't have $70 at launch to spend on a game, you can still talk about the game. You can still support the game. You can get the game when it's on sale still, even if you buy it pre-owned and rave about it. and maybe support that developer with future, launch or early day purchases. That's kind of our responsibility as gamers in our gaming circles, is to talk about it and share about it and educate about it.
I think that, I mean, our social media is like, it's a lot like half glass empty. There's too much of that.
Mhm.
I mean, every day it's like glass half empty. There's too much of that. So our responsibility is to, like, not force positivity, but at least being open-minded enough to like the benefit of the doubt, to believe in stuff. I mean, we don't have to believe in everything, but at least someone balance it out. Because what I'm noticing, like on Twitter, if someone sparks something, most people will jump at the first frame and shit on it and do everything in their power not to, like, reflect. They will buy the negative narrative frame one. They will spread it, and if you you have to have some balance in that.
Yeah.
Some people need to, like, say, "Hey, wait a moment. We have to think about this a little. Maybe Jim Ryan isn't so bad." You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think I saw I hate to say this, because if this person watches the show, they're going to see that I brought up their tweet. So I'm not intending to criticize this person because that's their opinion. But I did see a tweet this morning that said Returnal, something along the lines of Returnal is now more controversial than The Last of Us 2 over
Yeah, exactly.
a couple of bugs. So that kind of, like, we do have a responsibility, as if you're on the internet, you are an influencer, whether you want to be or not. Eyes are watching you. So if you're online and you're going to have a voice online, you have a responsibility to use that voice appropriately. We all do. So maybe not quite jumping at things with
And
intent.
my thinking is people will do this because we have learned this process over like 15 years or whatever to
Oh, it's
be.
attention. You get attention easily
Yeah.
for,
So
I guess.
people will do this, but we need more people that are like, hey, wait a moment, chill out a little. I mean, think about it. Is this like Cyberpunk 2077? Like, what are you trying to say? And even these small accounts, I mean, some of them have big reaches, like 1,000 followers. I'm 1,000 followers, that's nothing. But you can have a big reach. So if someone like whines every day about, oh, Returnal is this shit game, makes a lot of comparisons, a, a whole, like, it will spread like fire if that guy is like, if people believe in him.
Right.
Want to believe in. Do you know what I mean? So it doesn't matter how small or big you are. You have, like, the power to influence how and create some balance. Like, chill a little.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree. I think we all have to be fair in how we voice things. And I think it's okay to see the negative and stuff. I mean, I could make you a pretty good sized list of the negative things in Cyberpunk, but I could also make you a great list of the really positive creative things. So I totally think that's a great point. That's a huge responsibility we have, is let's not spend time shitting on stuff, because that we don't want to drag the industry down. We love gaming, right? We want.
Yeah, because the funny thing with that, Crystal, is that I had a hell of an experience with Returnal. And I was one of the first people that wrote about it, like, openly, and said this game has some issues. But that post was kind of used to spark this whole shit fest. And I was just being honest, like, this is my experience, what can I do? like I wanted to know what was happening. I wasn't. I didn't want to shit on Housemark, and I didn't want to say things like "this is not worth 70," or I didn't want to be used as fuel in some kind of.
But you didn't say any of those things. You were honest. You voiced every game is going to have bugs on launch. You weren't negative about it. I saw the post. You asked if anybody had the experience and if there was a workaround. If somebody takes something that you say that isn't nasty out of context, I mean, you can't.
That's what I mean. People will do that.
Yeah.
And even if I'm not a big account, people will use that, and it would be this like major thing in like moments. I think that we need we need to have a balance, and we need to be like more reflective with what's happening. What is this thing? What does it mean? Is it this big extreme thing? Maybe it is, but we need to chill and think about it.
I agree.
I will say too that I think part of the other issue is you do have like the gaming journalism scene right now that kind of fuels it with their clickbait articles, and like these are the people that that honestly they have the most responsibility to nurture the gaming culture, but yet they'll gaslight gamers and then pour flames or gasoline all over the flames and call gamers toxic, but yet you're sitting over here putting out all these clickbait articles, and that's the only news that we currently have to latch onto and talk about. So like these big gaming journalists have a huge responsibility, which is why I think you're starting to see kind of an underground gaming culture being developed where you have voices that aren't big and well known, but they're being more respected than some of the people that that hold the current title. Yeah, I mean, there's a huge responsibility, and with the negativity is easier to latch onto because for some reason, we think about negativity more than we think about the positives. But it's also one of those things. If somebody tweets out like Returnal, Boki obviously influenced quite a bit of, I would say, quite a bit of what's currently going on with our sphere because he sparked a lot of different influential people within our sphere who are now loving and playing Returnal, which is creating this bigger positive conversation. So while sure there's negatives that are sparked from us, there's also certainly a lot of good that comes from it because I would say a lot of the conversation around Returnal has been Boki inspired quite a bit of that, in my opinion.
I think it's like a wave effect. That's how I see Twitter. You are you start the wave. And
Right.
then each individual in that wave is as important as anyone else. That's why I engage with everyone. I love people. I love to talk to people, but I also like to spread good values, and that's the underground thing. I think if we engage more than these clickbait journalists and spread like a more reflective mindset, it will spread and it will influence more and more people. It's like we are actually doing some kind of political work with this.
Right.
Which is a great segue because we do have an episode, a future episode planned where we plan to talk about the responsibilities of journalism and what we can do as gamers to kind of help quell that and kind of be the underground sources that come up and shed some more positivity on it. So I think this is probably a good place to wrap it up. We've got a little over an hour in the recording time, so we'll all just kind of do a final closing thought here, and we'll end the recording. But my friends and I will have a few drinks together. So I want to talk about that balance. Developers have a balance too. We need to do a better job of understanding that imperfections are going to happen, and we have to be reasonable in our expectations there. But you guys need to deliver polished games. You need to deliver what the gaming community wants, and we need to talk with our wallets. And I think we all, as an industry, need to continue working on finding balance and holding people accountable. with that balance. So that's my closing thought. Why don't you guys give us a closing thought?
My closing thought on that is that people should play Spider-Man on PlayStation, both the games, and think about one of the themes, which is actually what we are talking about now, journalism and media and how it influences like reality. Because you are Spider-Man and you hear all this shit people are talking about, but you're actually doing the stuff and you know the truth. So you know how far away it is. It's like a big theme in Spider-Man. So next, play those games. They are amazing, and think about that.
My closing thought would be, because we have a culture that's in such turmoil and in such kind of it's finding its identity. I feel like it needs to be like it's evolving into something else, and this is a really crucial phase. So I would say in this current time that we're in, really listen to your own voice and realize that your own thoughts and your own opinions are valid. And whereas like we can't really rely on the gaming journalism that we once were able to, it seems. So play things for yourselves. Listen to your own voice. Don't take what everybody says online and let it be your gospel or whatever. But try Cyberpunk. Maybe it's maybe it's your game. And maybe these flaws that affected other people, maybe you can overlook them and have a fantastic experience. So I would say ultimately value your own opinion and don't be afraid to be wrong. Step out there, own it, take responsibility. If we all screw up, I say some dumb shit sometimes, but like own it, own it and be willing to just be yourself and be the best you that you can be.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Amen to that. Thanks everybody for stopping by this first super awesome episode. Thank you to Boki and Gurney for being here with me on this journey. I didn't intend to rhyme, but it did. And I am sure the three of us and plenty of others will see you guys on future episodes. Bye, everybody.